everybody, it's Alyce-Kay Ruckelshaus from Threshold of Hineni, and I'm here to do a bookmark for the Love Hop that's been organized by Penny Whittemore, and I feel really privileged to be part of that. I haven't really planned out exactly what I'm going to do. I like to kind of create as I'm talking, but I've gotten out a few things that I think I want to have on it. This is going to be a little bit of a bigger bookmark because I have this stamp, and this was my verse for my husband's and my marriage. He was killed in a car accident almost 7 months ago. In fact, it'll be 7 months on Valentine's Day. Wow, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. So anyway, we had a really fantastic marriage, and I would like to create something to remember him by that I can have in my books. And so, if I can get a hold of my paper trimmer here, I'm going to make a bookmark that will help remind me of him. Not that I would ever forget him, but you know. So I have some manila file folder here. It's not like super heavy, but we're going to be adding a lot of stuff to it. So I think that this will be really good for a base. And I want to cut it so that I'm going to use the whole width, this part of it, and I'll probably use it in my Bible. So my Bible is tall enough to handle a fairly tall bookmark. And then scraps always go in with the Franken paper. Okay, so let's see, is that too tall? No, I don't really think it is. I'm probably going to cut it, I think, to about here, because I'll probably have some things hanging off the bottom. So let's go ahead and trim this down. Turn this the right way. Yeah, so I thought I would talk a little bit about Bill while I'm doing this, because like I said, we really had a fantastic marriage. It was really, we had met online when he was 73 and I was 53, and it was really cool because I had been dating for a while, and I had just gotten out of a relationship that I'd been in for a year and a half, and it was, you know, very disappointing to me for that to end, and I was pretty discouraged, and I started thinking, well, maybe I'm supposed to stay single. And so I had asked God if he wanted me to stay single. I said, you know what, I really want a partner, but if you want me to stay single, then obviously I want to do what's your will, but could you let me know so that I stop looking? And I heard from him so clearly. He said, your husband is looking for you. Put yourself where you can be found. And that was really, that was very cool. So I went online where I had met the best men that I had met, and I opened up a subscription, and soon after that was when Bill and I met each other online. And we knew almost right away that we belonged together. But for me, I think I knew in my heart, but hadn't really thought of in my brain. The first time that we talked on the phone, it's so hard to explain, but the only way I can say it is that it was like I recognized him. And okay, so I've got this cut, and I cut off the angles there. And now I'm going to use a stencil just for background. I don't know if any of the stencil will actually end up showing, but I want to have something on the base just in case. So what was I saying? Yeah, so I just recognized him, and a few days later he said to me, are you as sure about this as I am? And I had had men propose to me after knowing me for 2 weeks, and I broke up with them. And so I thought, oh no, I'm going to have to break up with him. And I just felt like God was saying, look inside yourself, which that's very hard for me to explain exactly what that meant. But I looked inside myself, and I knew, yeah, he is the one. I do know that. I am as certain as he is. And apparently he knew before I did that we belonged together. So anyway, so we were just able to build our relationship knowing that it was going to end in marriage, and that was very cool. We did not meet until we had been quote unquote dating for 5 months, 4.5 or 5 months. And then we got married about 5.5 months after we first met online, just a few weeks after we met in person. And when we met in person, we already knew that we were getting married. In fact, he flew me out to Maryland where he was living, and he had me bring 2 big suitcases because I think it was Southwest, and they let you bring luggage without paying anything extra. So that got me started moving in, and then he came out a couple weeks later to pick me up, to retrieve me from Minnesota where I was living, and I was quite happy to leave. I had always loved snow, but after living in Minnesota for 5 years, I've had enough snow for my entire life. Thank you very much. So, yeah, so anyway, so then I think it really was good that he was so much older than me. He was just really mature, and he had a lot of life experience and good perspective and everything, and I think that really helped our marriage a lot, because he really knew what was worth arguing over, which was basically nothing. And I think we had a couple of kind of sort of arguments. I think that the main thing that we argued over, but it was never anything that we were mad at each other about, was the temperature in the house, because I'm very warm and he's very cold. So he would have been happy to have it at about 80, and he tried to keep it at about 74. And, now that he's gone, I keep it at 64. I won't in the summer. That would be too expensive. But yeah, so that was really our only thing that we really disagreed about. We just got along really, really well. Okay, so I've got the stencil. I used this gold ink from Hobby Lobby. And now I want to go ahead and distress all the way around this. So anyway, so yeah, we got married, and we talked about it quite often. It was like we had always been married even before we knew each other. It felt like we had always been married. It didn't feel like we were newlyweds. We had that flush of newlywed love kind of thing and stuff, but it felt like we had always been together, and that was really nice. One of the things that I think was the most special to me, and I want to share that as I'm sharing these things, I think that these are things that you can think about and possibly see if there's some way that you can learn something for your own marriage from it. I think it's always good to look at other people's marriages and try to learn from them, especially if they're successful marriages like ours was. We believed in always touching. If we were near each other, we were touching in some way. Either, just maybe our arms were touching or our legs or something, but we were always touching. And so at night... Okay, so what I want to do here before I talk about that is I want to make a little reinforcement for the yarn tassel that I'm going to have here, the pull. So I'm going to use some of this. I got this idea from Carol Tinson. I get a lot of ideas from her. She's like really smart and artistic, and I love listening to her talk with her accent and everything. Excuse me. So it's like, one of my favorite memories from when he was alive is the way that we slept. We had a little tiny double bed, and we slept, you couldn't help but sleep really close together. And he would sleep on his back, and I would curl up against him and have my arm over his stomach usually. But we would fall asleep reading our Kindles, and so he'd be holding his, and I'd have mine kind of resting on his stomach. And then our other hands we used to hold each other's hands, and we held hands all the way through the night. If we woke up in the middle of the night, or one of us woke up and we had somehow lost the other person's hand. We found it, and that was really very sweet and very comforting to me, to have that. I just, yeah, he was just really wonderful. And we talked a lot. We spent a lot of time just sitting together talking. Either his favorite place to sit was in the kitchen, so that was where we sat most of the time, was at the kitchen table. And sometimes we would just sit there talking, because I grew up kind of, this wasn't my parents, this was more my church, but it was like Proverbs 31 was a big thing, and so she doesn't eat the bread of idleness. It makes me very nervous to just sit, because I feel like I'm being really a bad person if I just sit, which that's not good. But that's how it is. So sometimes I would bring out stuff, like this, to work on things that I could work on just, at the table while we were talking, and that didn't bother Bill at all or anything. So let me see, I want to punch a hole in this. Where's my hole punch? Oh, I don't see it. Okay, let's use the hole punch that's on here then. It's a little bit smaller, but it will work. And I think that's what this one here is in the middle. Okay, so I don't have this glued on here yet, but it's easier to punch it before I have it glued. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here and punch the hole, and then I will glue it on. There we go. Okay, yeah, see, that's a small hole, but it'll work fine. What was I saying? Yeah, so we sat and talked a lot, and you guys, that's really good for a relationship, when you're able to just enjoy talking to each other. Communication really is key, and we talked about everything. And whenever there was, anything going on in our lives that was any kind of problem or anything, we talked it through. As far as I was concerned, Bill was in control, but I don't think he really saw it. He kind of saw it that way, but not really. He didn't take control or anything like that, but he was willing to make the decisions and stuff. And I had told him, I don't like making decisions. I had been a single mom for 10 years, and that had just been really rough on me, having to make those decisions and everything. And so I really appreciated that he was willing to make the decisions. But, if I objected to something, he pretty much, was going to listen to me and everything. And at least consider what I had to say. Okay, so what else do I want to have on this? I think I want to have some lace, maybe some of this on it. This is really wide, so I'll probably just use like 1/2 of it or something. Okay, where are my fabric scissors? So, and one thing too was, I think this is really big, is when you recognize that there is really nothing that's worth fighting over. Seriously. And you have to think of, is this worth maybe not ruining my marriage, but is this worth hurting my marriage? Because when you argue, that's going to hurt your marriage. And so we just didn't, and it wasn't, neither of us took advantage of the other or anything like that. It was, I think we were just both always looking out for the other person and putting the other person first. I think there were, a few times when we probably weren't. We're human. But really, really, for the most part, we did. And the thing is that really only works if you're both doing that. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to have a good marriage if you're not both giving it your all. And unfortunately, so many marriages, and I've been part of those, both people aren't giving their all. It's like one person, but if one person does, it's really not going to work so well. Okay, so I have some pictures that didn't print out real great, but they will work. I have a picture of Bill here. He was a sweater maker. He used, I don't know what time I started this. He used vintage hand-operated knitting machines. One of them was from the 1890s, and he sold these internationally, and we made a lot of cool friends that way. But he had already been doing it for, I don't know, 35 years or so before I came along. He had closed his sweater making business, but when we were dating, he had said that he really wished he could start it up again, but he didn't think he wanted to run a store. And so I said, well, what if we do it online? So we put it onto Etsy and everything. And, I wouldn't say it was super successful, but we didn't really put a lot into it. It was a little bit more than a hobby for him, but it wasn't something that he really focused on a whole lot. Actually, I think I want to tear this. Okay, so here I've got from number 6, 24 through 26, the Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. That was kind of our blessing. And that was just really special to us. So I want to see if I can include it on here. I'm not really sure if I can because I've got so much going on here. But we'll see. So, yeah, and we talked about spiritual things a lot, and I think that that's a big thing, too. We just, we talked about everything that was important to us, and we never ran out of things to talk about. It was just really special that way because we always did have something to talk about. It was never, awkward silences trying to figure out what to say. We would take drives and just talk and talk and talk and talk, and we'd talk at home. And before we met, we talked on the phone. We figured we talked over 100 hours each month on the phone. And then we wrote tens of thousands, literally, of emails. And we text messaged a lot, and we Skyped a few times, so we knew what the other person looked like and their mannerisms and everything, but mostly we talked on the phone and emailed. And we had, at first, when we first were getting to know each other, we had tried to figure out a way to get together. I lived in Minnesota, and I had still my son at home. And not much money because I was a single mom. But Bill was totally willing to pay to fly me someplace. He had thought, his idea was originally that we would meet in a different city each month to just explore that city, which would have been very, very cool. But, with a child at home and everything, that was kind of hard to do. And we just weren't able to work it out at first. And then after a couple months, he said, I've been thinking about this, and maybe it's best that we don't meet for quite a while. Because he said, once you meet, then the physical stuff starts. You're kissing and everything like that, and you're not really spending time getting to know each other. And it was like, yeah, that's really, really right. And so that's what we did. We didn't meet until, I think it was 3 weeks or so, 3 or 4 weeks before we got married. And that was really, really good. It was awesome. It didn't affect us badly in any way. Okay, I don't know if I can fit the blessing on here as well as the music. I really want the music on there. Maybe I can put the blessing on the back. It, like I said, it didn't affect us negatively in any way. And we just, when we met for the first time in person, it was like we had always known each other. There was nothing awkward about it or anything. We met, he flew me into Baltimore airport, and so he was waiting in baggage. And it was really weird because there was no one else in the entire baggage area. It was so weird. I walked out there, and I wasn't even sure if he would be there because my flight was half an hour early. And I don't know if the pictures are going to work on here or not. We'll see. Oh, and I want to make sure I stamp this someplace too. So I want to make sure that there's enough room for that. I'm going to put his picture. So yeah, so he was standing there and he wasn't looking at me. He was like looking up at the clock or something. And so I got to kind of watch him for a few seconds, and then he turned and saw me, and so I walked over to him, and he just put his arm around me and kissed me right away. And it was just like, yeah, it was like I had only been gone for a week or something, you know, and we had always been together. It was just so, so weird, but it was really precious. Just the way that we were able to be. It was, yeah, I don't even know how to describe it, because it was just so wonderful and so perfect. So when he died, it was obviously very, very, very difficult for me. I'm not sure that I like the pictures, but that's kind of I don't know, maybe I should just do this or this and some lace up here. Overlap that a little bit. Yeah, maybe I won't do the pictures. I think they kind of take away from the effect here. Okay, so let's put this down. And so I've got an old catalog here that I can use for my glue stick stuff. And then if I get too much glue on it, which is looking like it might have quite a bit of glue on it, then I can just tear off the page and throw it away. I actually got that idea from Gail Agostinelli. She uses an old book, and when she throws away the pages, she actually glues them, folds them in half and glues them together, and then uses them for like journaling cards and stuff. She'll collage on top of them and stuff, and that's kind of a cool idea. Well, there went my my catalog right into the trash basket, but it's just all paper, so I can get it out of there just fine. Okay, we're going to put it upside down for a minute and let that glue stick dry so it's not going to be sticky. Let me get this out. Okay, and then we want, why are you not staying on there like you were before? Okay, and then I want to stamp this, I think up here close to the top. Okay, and I'm going to do that, I think, in the vintage photo. I want to make sure I get plenty of ink on it. Yeah, so I mean, we knew each other really well by the time that we met in person, and honestly, I think that not meeting in person for so long really, really contributed to the success of our marriage. We knew each other so well because we talked so much. So yeah, I think that was just a really good thing. And we had a good physical relationship. We had a wonderful physical relationship. You know, you don't need all that happening while you're dating in order for that to be good when you're married. There we go. That's cool. Okay, so then I think I want to have maybe across this way. I'm not sure. Maybe across part of it, because I don't want it to be like half and half. Okay, so yeah, I think we'll do that. So we'll cut this up here. Like I said, I'm just kind of making this up as I go. So, you know, and you know, it'd be really cool, you all, would be if you have tips of things that have been really good for you in your marriage, maybe you could share that below in the comments, so that other people can benefit from that. I think that would be just really, really cool. Okay, now, can I see what time, how much time I have? Okay, it looks like I'm almost out of time. So we're going to make this 2 videos long. Okay, I'm going to stop right now, and I will see you on the next video, which you can just go straight to. All right, I love you. Bye-bye.